The audio that you're about to listen to was taken from our Instagram live stream.
Welcome, ladies, gents, and our non-binary friends to Spoiler Sleepover, a Nerd Camp Network production.
It's part with Camp Nightmare, Camp Krusty, and Clearing the Queue, all three great podcasts, which you should also go follow on your podcast listening devices and networks.
How have you been?
I've been good. It was a nice little vacation while still working on a car. But yeah, it's good to be back. How about you?
I've been all right. Been very busy, but busy with work and a lot of other things. I've got some things in motion that I'm looking forward to announcing once I'm ready to.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's going to be pretty cool. What's been keeping you up at night?
So, I haven't watched the episode yet because I had to work today. But maybe it's episode 5 of season 2 of From. That's gonna be what's watched immediately after this. Yeah, From. Getting excited. I'll keep saying it for the new Avenged Sevenfold album coming up in like 2 or like just over a week. I think week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting to rewatch the movie Barbarian for tonight, so that's fun. I even had like nice little. Mm-hmm. See, that was going to be my opening bit because I went to the store on my way home and I forgot some milk, so I wrote it on the side of a water jug. I mean, milk.
It's a milk jug, a milk carton. It works.
Yeah. Just only look at this side that says milk and don't look at this side.
Yeah. It's
Not
clear
sponsored
milk.
by Poland Spring, but sponsored by milk.
I'm drinking
Oh, nice stickers.
milk. Oh yeah, thanks. I got these at Creature Feature.
Hell yeah.
Got those and
Oh.
my Smile one.
Smile,
Yeah.
yep. Smile in the cotton candy pod.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a busy week, but I've also had a busy week of watching things. I don't think I've watched this much in a long time. I have been watching some shit. I watched the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, which was fantastic. Like, I don't care what anybody says. It was fun, like straight up. I know Matt Kelly from Horror Movie Night watched it. He actually brought it up on Horror Movie Night.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. If you're
I
just
never
looking,
D&D'd.
see, here's the thing: is you don't need to. Like, it's an adventure film. Like, it's just plain and simple. It's a medieval adventure film. If you've played D&D, you get some of the references. Like, there are like creatures that show up that'll be like, oh, I get that one.
Okay.
But even to like people who casually know what D&D is, you'll get things like mimics. You know what a mimic is, even if you haven't played, sort of thing. Oh, maybe you don't.
I know mimics from like COD Zombies and then what is it? Prey? Whatever that space game is, where it's like a mimic can literally just be a coffee cup and then it hops and you're like, fuck you.
That's it.
Okay.
That's what a mimic is in D&D also. It can be anything.
Oh.
But yeah, highly recommend. It's streaming on Paramount Plus now.
Oh.
Yeah. Paramount Plus. It's streaming on Paramount Plus now.
Nice.
I watched a terrible found footage film called Unknown Visitor. I don't do it. Like, just don't. Like,
Are you telling me next week's episode isn't going to be Unknown Visitor?
Oh God, no. No, the entire movie was shot through like a Ring doorbell camera. It was it's two characters, and they are the most unlikable people you'll ever view in your life. Like, the entirety of the movie, I was just annoyed by everybody. I'm like, yeah, don't do it. Let's see, what else did I watch? On the realm of bad movies, I rewatched Halloween Resurrection, and I don't know why.
Resurrection was the high school, or the
Resurrection is the one that they do the
that's Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, the reality show one.
Gotcha. H2O was Coolio. No, not Coolio. Who was that? LL Cool J?
I don't remember. See, it's been so long since I watched either of those. That's why I was like, which one do I watch? Because I wanted to like put something on in the background sort of thing. And I'm like, I haven't seen either of these in years. Yeah. And I was like, Resurrection, put it on. And it was so bad I couldn't look away. Like, I was just like,
I want to say H2O is probably the better of the two.
I mean, it can't be worse than Resurrection. It was terrible. I don't remember it being that bad, but it was bad.
With the ever-changing masks and the fact that one just goes CG for a hot second, maybe.
It was also the hair kept changing. At one point, he had a fro, and I was just like, what is happening right now?
I think there were 3 different masks and then a CG mask. Maybe,
oh my God.
Maybe it might have been 2 and the third was the CG. I don't know.
It was terrible either way. Like, all of it was just bad. I also watched The Green Knight, which I'm late to the game on this one. You hadn't even heard of it, apparently. I cannot recommend enough. Really, really great. It's an A24 film, so you already know what you're getting yourself into. I don't want to spoil anything on that one. Maybe we'll do that in a future episode, but like, my God. Honestly, it was, my brother put it best. Like, he was like, it's an experiment with light. Like, the lighting throughout that movie was gorgeous, like the entire time. Not to mention the soundtrack was awesome. Really good, really good. I finally watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
So where has that been? Because I knew it was coming out, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, people are watching it. It's like, where?
Yeah. So it got a no, see, here's the downside to living in New Hampshire. Theaters around here, we don't get like the good films, and if we do, it's for a day, maybe 2, if we're lucky. Like, when you and I went to go for that Universal Monsters double feature, I think it was the second one we went to, when I got back from California, and I was like, they're showing Terrifier 2? They didn't have it advertised. It was just, we saw it in the kiosk, and I was like, oh, it's here. That's New Hampshire. Like, we don't get things. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey played at one theater in New Hampshire for one day, and they had one showing. And I was working, so I wasn't able to go, but it is available for rent on Prime, YouTube, I believe, and then there was somewhere else you can rent it right now. But I think it's only like $4.99 right now, so that's why I was like, rent. And it was fun. Like, honestly, I was expecting it to be terrible, but they made it make sense, because we all know, like, Winnie the Pooh's a stuffed animal, and it's Christopher Robin's imagination doing all of this.
Yeah.
They made it make sense. I don't want to say anything because I do want to do this as an episode. Like, I'm really bad. It is a lot of fun.
Whenever, like, when you were talking about it only playing in one place, it is working now. Fingers crossed it keeps working. Thank God.
Thank you.
Welcome. But like the mean one, I wanted to see the mean one, but it was only playing in one place, and the only time I could see it was when I was out of work. But it was playing in like Meredith.
I didn't even realize it was out.
Oh yeah,
I'm
no, that
literally
came
finding this out now. I thought it was getting released this year, so like
it's I don't think it's getting any sort of digital or anything release. Like I've been keeping an eye on it, and it said, yeah, it might not come out at all. It's like,
all right. Well, I mean, I'll keep my eye out for that because that's the same actor that plays Art the Clown.
yep, it's David Howard Thornton.
Yeah, and I really wanted to see that. So,
Mm-hmm.
aside from that, I've been playing Hades a lot.
80s.
Hades, yeah. So I got back into playing Diablo. I've been playing Diablo 3 like crazy. It's like my 6th playthrough.
Nice.
I love the game. Like I don't care. It's so much fun. But I was like, I need a break. I'm like almost at the end, so I was like, I need a break so that I don't like wear myself out on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I got suggested Hades. They were like, oh, it's kind of the same thing. It's not at all the same thing. But it is a lot of fun. And I think stream-wise, it would be cool for you to do it. Get a Feisty Cheese Hades run. It's literally a single character building game, and in the sense of you continuously do the same thing over and over and over again, building your character stronger and stronger. You will die multiple times with the main boss. You get sent back to the start, and you have to start all over again.
Sounds like Dark Souls.
It pretty much, it's in that realm, but you get stronger.
I can't do Dark Souls or Elden Ring, dude.
So
Like,
here's the upside to it.
You saw me break the arm off my chair. I'm going to smash a controller if I try one of those.
I thought I was going to do the same thing, but this is the cool thing is this game has an overarching like storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you die, you go back to like the Citadel where you live, and there's characters in there. So every time you die, you go back, you talk to all of them, and it builds the story. So they tell you different things every time. There's an overarching storyline between you and your father, and you get more abilities. You can build your strength, you can build your life. But every time you go back into the dungeon crawling aspect of it, you get opportunities to build specific abilities. And so you build those abilities as you go further into the game. But once you die, you lose all of that. The only thing you keep is your strength and your health levels. Yeah. So you go back in, and every single time you get to build different aspects. You're basically trying to figure out what's the best way to go about completing.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. I stand by it. I got frustrated for a split second and then realized what type of game this was and was like, you know what? The story is worth it. Honestly, like that's my selling point. Like I've rushed through today. I played for an hour and I rushed through the dungeons 3 times and intentionally killed myself to get back to the story because I was more interested in the story.
We love those games.
It's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's about it. That's been I've been watching a lot of TV show. I've been watching Snowfall again. I'm still watching Snowfall, which is just far too much fun. It's cocaine and heroin. Woo! Yeah.
Everybody's favorite.
Yeah. So yeah, let's jump into the meat of this episode. Why not? Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So this one's yours. You're the lead on this one because you knew more about it and you were talking about it.
Yeah.
So
this is 22's Barbarian. It shocked me a little bit that this was almost seemed like a sleeper. Like not a lot of people knew about it, and few people had heard about it, but weren't sure what it was. But it's my favorite movie that came out last year. Like out of everything. Terrifier 2 came out last year. Halloween Ends. Like, there's 1,000 movies that came out last year. This one is my all-time favorite. So good. So yeah, the movie takes place in Detroit. The movie opens up with Tess, the main character, pulling up to a house on a rainy night in the middle of the night, and it's a pretty decent-looking, nice house. And it is an Airbnb that she's rented, and she's trying to get the code correct and get in. Turns out it's been double booked by Keith, played by Skarsgård himself.
Bill?
Yeah, Pennywise. Huh?
Bill?
Yeah, it's Bill Skarsgård. Yep.
Okay, I was like, there's a couple Skarsgårds. There's was like
It's
Alex.
not Alexander.
Yeah, but like spelled completely strange.
Yeah. But yeah, she tries to get in, can't get in, goes back to her car, tries to call the renter, and sees a light turn on inside the house. Proceeds to go back to the door, and we are now introduced to Keith, who is potentially the kindest, most awkward person you've ever met in your life.
Yep.
Um, so I love that opening when you get to meet Keith for the very first time. You're like, this is the bad guy. Like you're immediately thinking, this is him, because he's doing everything. He invites her in. Don't go outside. It's not safe out there, which makes no sense at the opening because you don't see the neighborhood. So he invites her in. She sits down. She's trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure it out. Just decides, I'm going to sleep on the couch and you can stay in the bedroom. He offers to make her tea.
Yep.
And she refuses to drink it. Not in a rude way, but like strange guys.
Strange that they left. Yeah. Like when I've seen this movie twice. Once I fell asleep during it, which I mean, not an insult to the movie, but like more of me probably just falling asleep. But I didn't get it as much as I do now. Like you were raving about it. Camp Nightmare was raving about it. Watching it again and knowing from the get-go that it's like, he seems like a bad guy. He's like really set up as a bad guy. And then when we get to it, it's like, oh, they did a real good job of playing him up as the possible twist.
Oh, yeah. And I think the casting has a lot to do with that, too. Because, like, Bill, at this point, he's Pennywise. Like, he killed it Pennywise. He was also on that Hulu show that I'm now drawing a blank for. It was like every Stephen King property exists in a town. Castle Rock. Rock. And he was like that character. Like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he a demigod? Like, you don't really know what his character is on Castle Rock. If you haven't watched Castle Rock, there's 2 seasons. It's fantastic. Anyway, so Tess says that she has an issue with sleeping on dirty sheets. She's got a thing with clean sheets. So they decide to wash the sheets. She goes, takes a shower, I'm assuming. She says she's going to clean up.
Yep.
She comes back out and he's just sitting at the table with 2 wine glasses.
It's like motionless. Just as soon as she walks out, I poured some wine if you want.
Well, he didn't open the bottle because he then points out, I noticed you didn't touch the tea. So I didn't want to open the bottle. And you're like, okay, he's putting out the vibe of like, no, I understand that you might think this is roofie, but I'm going to let you know you're safe, which is like your stereotypical, it's not safe sort of situation. But they sit down, they have a talk, and they find out they have things in common. So she's there for an interview with a woman that he also knows that's doing a documentary. She did a documentary for Jazz. Now she's doing a documentary on like the crumbling society of Detroit. He happens to be the co-founder of a company that like rehomes homes, more or less. I looked into like he calls it like the Lion Tamers. There is an organization sort of like that does exist in Detroit in real life. It's a cool organization. They take old homes in decrepit areas of Detroit and try and like rebuild them into low income housing, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of becoming a meet cute. I have to say, like, there was the moment. So the sheets come out of the bed, out of the dryer, and they have that cute scene where he's like putting a duvet, like showing her how to put the duvet on properly. And this is the greatest. It's like one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, because there's that moment where they're like, are they going to kiss? And then they don't, obviously. Before any of that, you notice once she's in the house, anytime she goes to the bathroom or any other room, she locks the door. The camera work in this movie has a really cool way of showing you, like, here's the lock. And they do this throughout later in the movie too. They show you things like, this is what was forgotten. You're like, oh my gosh, all right, cool. But she goes to bed.
I was talking about it with Scream 6. Like, they did have some good framing work and excellent, like, videography or whatever you want to call it. This movie is incredible with that.
Oh yeah.
Like, whatever it is, it's like the camera's on a set thing, but as soon as, I think it's when she leans back in the chair, the camera leans just like that with her. Or like later, and we meet another character, and all of a sudden it's a first-person view. It's like, what is going on? No, this
there's some really cool editing.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this time she goes to bed and doesn't lock the bedroom door, and we get kind of like, there's a lot of real quick cuts, like hard cuts to the next sequence, which I really enjoy throughout this movie. But she's asleep. We hear a noise. She rolls over. The door's open.
Which I don't recall hearing that noise in the first go. Like, you just hear a creak on the floorboard and her eye pops open. And it's like, she's a light sleeper. But then you hear like,
yeah,
and that's it. It's like, I hate that.
I saw this movie twice in theaters. And after the first time I saw it, I walked out. I texted almost everybody. I was like, you gotta go fucking see this. It's so good. I didn't hear the hiss the first time I saw it in theaters. It wasn't until the second time I saw it in theaters that I heard it. Like, how did I miss that the first time? So you're not alone. But then she walks out into the living room, and Keith is asleep on the couch having a night terror. I'm assuming it's a night terror.
Yeah.
He's kind of like quiet screaming, and she wakes him up, and he, rightfully so, freaks out, gets mad at her. She asks if he opened the door. He did not, obviously. So she goes back to bed. Enter a really cool hard cut again where she lays down, and then it just hard cuts to morning, and she's like completely sprawled out on bed. It's awesome. Keith is
locked
gone.
the door this time too.
She did. Keith is gone for the day. She's apparently running slightly late, so she gets ready to go for her meeting that she has. She leaves. Hard cut again. She puts the key in the lockbox, closes it, and goes out for an interview. Ends up talking. Apparently, the interview goes really well, and she ends up talking to the woman she's interviewed with. Tells her where she's staying in this area called Brightmoor, and she's like, "Why are you there?" Like, it's this immediate like, okay, so Brightmoor's a bad place.
Every red flag that was ever a red flag is flagging.
And when she leaves, when she ends up leaving for the interview, we end up seeing where she is. So the house is out of place. Like, it's a nice house, and everything else is completely destroyed. The houses are boarded up, half broken. The yard's disgusting. All the cars are broken down, which is really cool because this was my 8th time watching this movie, by the way. I really like the movie. But if you go back to the opening of the movie when she shows up, there is a moment when she gets out of her car. The camera goes to the side and shows her from the side, and you see houses, and you see a car parked in the driveway. Nothing looks off. And then the next morning, when they get the pan, you see that car is like burned.
Yep.
Like, everything's destroyed. So it's really cool. They do this contrast between night and day, where you get to see things. The real terror happens during the day, sort of thing. So she ends up leaving the interview, goes back to the house, and as soon as she gets out of her car, you see somebody in the middle of the road, like down the road.
Yep.
And it's this dude, and he just starts screaming at her. He's just like, "Hey, little girl, come here." He keeps calling her little girl, which is real creepy.
Don't go in that house. Don't go in there. Get out of here. Like, screaming. Oh.
What is he? Oh, come out that house. Come out that house when she gets in there.
Come out that house right now. And just, I mean, again, this movie sets up all sorts of, it's like, oh man, must be the bad guy, or oh man, must be some crazy dude. No, it all explains itself later, where it's like they're doing this to try and help. Oh
yeah. So she goes in, and it's the best way to get somebody into a basement ever.
Yep.
She goes to use the bathroom and realizes she's out of toilet paper, and she searches all over the house, can't find any, and then realizes there's a basement, and she goes down. She finds the teepee, but the door shuts and locks behind her.
So this was a question that I still have. Is it haunted, or is our character creeping around like, or is it just like the door is angled so where if you leave it open, it'll start to come back?
I want to assume, because this happens more than once, and it happens the same way.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've watched this 8 times. So the door, the characters that open the door, they open it to the same like width. Like it goes all the way open.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, my thought process is it's got to be set up. So once they've hit a specific stair,
there's a rig.
Every single time the door starts shutting.
Okay.
And the best one is later. I'll get to that. We'll bring back up this again. But like, there's a moment where Keith goes downstairs and she stays upstairs.
Yep.
She's holding the door. And then she goes down only halfway. And then she takes a single step further and the door starts shutting again. And she turns and runs back up and stops the door.
I think it also did that. Like it was open earlier in the movie, and we just like when she walks past that hallway and like this, like all the vacant space, which at some point I would like to do Invisible Man 2020, because like all the blank vacant space in this movie is just sitting you going like, ugh. But like you actually see things happen, and it just slowly closes the door, and it comes again later. But yeah, go on, Keith.
So she goes downstairs, finds the teepee, the door shuts and locks. She can't get out. Then we get 2 really cool hard cuts. We get a hard cut to her cell phone still upstairs, and she pats her pocket. And then we get a hard cut to the lockbox open outside, and then she reaches in and realizes she still has the key. And it's like, all right, so she's screwed at this point. Now she does the generic, like, all right, well, let me figure something out. So we get this cuts where she's trying to find something to either jimmy the door open or the only window in the basement open so she can get out. She then finds a mysterious rope coming out of a hole in the wall and pulls it. Like, why? But she does it. So she opens it and a mysterious door opens.
Which
and she does
favorite line.
Yeah, she stares at it. We get these really cool pull-out shots down the hallway and a pull-out shot to her face, and she just hard goes, nope.
Which is the most sensible thing I've ever seen in a horror movie. Ever. I love it.
Until the unfortunate thing is where she hears a noise and goes, all right, well, let me see if I can see what's down there. Now, she's probably the dumbest smart person I've ever met in my life, because she figures out a way without a flashlight to see down that hallway by grabbing a mirror and angling it with the ceiling light. She was like, dude, seriously, it was such a cool sequence too. So we see down there, and you can see that there's a door at the end of the hallway to the left-hand side. So she goes down anyway and opens it to reveal a room with a mattress and a camera and a bucket and a bloody handprint.
Yep. And
she nopes out of there real quick. Keith arrives. She hears the banging on the door upstairs, the front door, and she bangs on the window. They jimmy the window open. She hands him the key. He lets her out. And then we get the Keith thing again, where it's like, okay, we thought he was good. Now he's acting suspicious again, where she's like, there's a room with a mattress, a camera, and a bucket, and there's a bloody handprint on the wall. And he's just like, I don't believe any of this. Just wait. Don't leave.
Yeah.
He's trying to keep her in the house, which is just like
I kind of understand it though, where he's, well, not the whole keeping her in the house thing, but more of like the, hang on, I don't believe any of this, because it's like she's locked in the basement, comes up just all frantic and shit, and then it's like, you know what? Let's have all of this dramatic stuff at you at once. It's like, I don't see it. I can't see it. Let me go see it for myself to believe it.
Right.
Is it
I mean,
style seeing is believing or something?
I would want to see it myself, but like, I'm not going to tell you to stay in the house. Get the hell out of the house. If you're uncomfortable, go sit in the car. I'm not going to tell you to stay there. That's the thing that makes him seem like he's a bad guy. Is it's like, no, stay in this house. That could be a death trap.
Yeah. Put a chair at the door, stay by the window. If I come screaming, then come help.
Yeah. So he goes down. Keith goes downstairs, sees the room. We don't see Keith down there. We hear him through Tess. So Tess is yelling to him. He's responding, and then he goes silent. And then Tess stupidly goes downstairs. Smartly, though, she props the door open with a chair. So she goes down. Keith is nowhere to be found. And then she finds yet again another door in that hallway. And
which she noped out the first one, but this one's a bit worse and like straight down stone steps. I would have noped out that one.
That would have been Keith is dead to me. Like I'm
Sorry,
out. Bye. Yeah. But she goes down. She's got her phone this time.
Yeah.
So she has her flashlight on the phone. She goes down. She hears Keith screaming help before she goes down. So she goes down. She goes around a corner and finds like a gate door that reminds me of like an old elevator door. And I was just like, that's kind of a weird thing to have. But 2 steps in, there's a bunch of metal crates, cages off to one side. She slowly works her way down the hallway, and then Keith comes crawling out of the dark like a creature out of the night and is freaking out.
Still kind of giving me setup vibes.
100%, because she wants to go back the way that's short, and it's right there. He's telling her they need to go deeper in. So at that point, you're going, he's still the bad guy. And then Mother appears and bashes his head into oblivion.
And that's when you're like, you know what? Maybe he was a good guy all along. Maybe he was just socially awkward.
Keith was a good guy.
Keith was a good guy, and then he's pasted on the wall.
Yeah. Then we get another hard cut to another character. So we meet AJ.
Enter Justin Long.
Yes, Justin Long being the most Justin Long could possibly be in a horror film.
Personally, I saw like a whole roller coaster of character arc where like it goes from, okay, he's just, a pompous Hollywood douche canoe.
Yeah.
And then, okay, maybe there's something behind this. Maybe he wants to do better. And then it's all the same thing from the get-go. He's just a douche canoe. And
we're introduced to AJ while he's driving a convertible.
Yep.
And singing Ricky Tappy.
Coast Highway.
Yeah. He's singing like the worst song ever, and he's not doing a good job at it. And then proceeds to get a phone call from his publicist and few other people, telling them that he's been removed from a project that he's working on, which is our introduction to finding out he's an actor.
Yep.
And he's being removed because he's being sued for allegations of sexual assault, is what we find out at that point. Sexual assault to a female actress. He freaks out, but in like the most Hollywood douche way possible, calling her a bitch and stuff like that.
Yeah. She's lying.
So then,
that thing.
Yeah. Excuse me. So then he ends up going and talking to his financial advisor, who lets him know that if he goes through with all of these, the lawsuit, the lawyer and everything like that, he's going to be broke. And then his financial advisor, in 3 months, because I think it was $70,000 a visit or something like that. Yeah. So, and then his financial advisor drops him also. He ends up finding out that he knows he's got property in Michigan. So he decides he's going to go out to Michigan, try and turn around his property for financial gain, make some money back, basically, to try and beat this. He flies out he then gets a call from his lawyer, who advises him he should never have left the state of California.
You're basically fleeing.
Yeah. We then find out that the property that he owns in Michigan is the same exact house in Detroit that Tess and Keith were at. He goes and picks up his key and then goes to his property. We immediately see that the door is still propped open with a chair.
Yep.
And that Tess and Keith's luggage is still there also. He calls the booker, the Airbnb booker, to find out who's staying there. Nobody is. That's when we find out that it's been weeks since they've been there.
There's been a time gap, and it's astonishing.
Yeah. I just had a brain fart. Sorry. He gets a call, or he calls his mother, has a conversation with mom, and he's not PC or PG about any conversation with his mom. He's like, well, if she's a fucking bitch, then I think I have a right to call her a fucking bitch. And you're like,
trying to ruin my name and all that. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
So, he also, when he first shows up, he gets pissed and he closes the basement door. He moves the chair and closes the basement door. So then he calls a friend.
He's like, I got a work call coming in.
Yeah. And it's a friend, and they meet up at a bar, loud bar. And his buddy's like, tell me the truth. We're just bros. You can tell me anything. And that's when we find out that he raped that woman.
Oh, yeah.
Full on, but he tries to explain his way out of it, basically. Tries to make it seem like it's okay that he did what he did. Obviously, it's not okay.
She just took some convincing. Yeah, no, that's not a good thing. That's never a good defense, buddy. You put the nail in the coffin yourself.
Yes. So then it cuts to him back at the house, walking into the house, hammered, calling Megan. I believe her name was Megan.
Yeah.
And apologizing, on message. He's leaving her a message. I'm so sorry. If you call me back, I'll tell you I'm sorry over the phone. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Then it's another hard cut. He's asleep. It's morning. He wakes up. He's puking in the toilet. And then he sees Keith's toothbrush on the floor, which rewind back to
unhygienic from the get-go.
That was my real red flag with Keith, was the fact that he had a toothbrush on the floor. I was like,
it wasn't the fact that he was a sketchy dude or extremely socially awkward, night terrors, sitting waiting at the table. No, he's just got a toothbrush on the floor, like a savage animal.
Looks like a sociopath brushes their
nasty.
Oh, gross. So he hears the noise downstairs and gets dressed. He doesn't get dressed at first. He goes down, realizes there's something up, goes back upstairs, gets dressed. He finds the door. The door's now been shut, so he pulls the rope to reopen the door and proceeds to go down to what we think is going to be a repeat.
Yeah.
The upstairs door is going to shut. He's going to be stuck. Nope. He finds the room that has the mattress, bucket, camera, and blood print on the wall and goes, I wonder if this equals into the square footage, and goes back upstairs and proceeds to Google to see if he can add it as an extra room.
It does
to make more money.
Usually count, but
yeah. So he grabs a tape measure, goes back down, measures that room, finds the door that goes down into the mines.
May I just say, the one glaring problem I have with this movie is the fact that tape measure, when he puts it on the top of the stairs, doesn't immediately go, nope, and fly down the stairs. It's not realistic. God damn it. I've used so many tape measurers, and all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm just going to stick right here. Yeah. No, nonsense.
I mean,
it's just a movie, Jason. It's just a movie, they say. Wrong, tape measurers. What?
I mean, you can have that issue too, because now he proceeds downstairs to measure downstairs, and he puts it onto a stone wall, and it stays. No.
Oh, he also grabbed a knife at this point, by the way.
Oh yeah.
He grabbed the flashlight,
Yes. He grabbed a paring knife. It's just a paring knife. It's not a knife.
Upstairs, he's like, if you're down there, I got a gun. And he goes, little knife about this big.
He does not have yeah. So he's measuring downstairs, he's measuring the mines, and turns around, and this is the first time we see it, is there is a room down there. And there's this weirdly pale light coming out of the room, and he proceeds to look into the room, which has what can only be described as a nest on the floor of clothing, and a single TV showing a breastfeeding movie.
Yeah, like how to nurse your baby video, but in some foreign language.
Yeah. So he then hears something again and goes deeper in. Instead of turning around and going back, he keeps it up and goes down further in, and starts running. Oh, that's because the tape measure gets pulled out of his hand.
Yeah,
and it freaks him out.
It's pulled down the hall.
Yeah.
I think that's when he he goes running and then falls. The flashlight starts flickering.
Yeah.
Which we get one of the coolest. There's a couple cool shots with Mother, but one of them is when he's just like, what the hell is that? Like, we get the first person view and everything, but then it keeps flicking on and off. You're like, all right, something's going to happen. And she slowly creeps up just out of the shadows. And all of a sudden, bam, she's right there.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he falls into this pit, and he's freaking out, and he starts to scream, and then Tess appears and tells, shh. She covers his mouth. And then we get another hard cut, and we are now introduced to what was his name? Because they only say it once. Frank. We get introduced to Frank. And this is the point where it gets, the first two times I watched it, even after the first time I watched it, the second time I was just like, wait, what is exactly happening? So I pieced it together. Frank, the Frank storyline, even though it's very short, takes place between 1981 and 1989. And the only reason I figured that out is because for 2 seconds when we are introduced to Frank, he leaves the house, he gets into his car, starts his car, and the radio talks about Reagan. And I was just like, okay, so Reagan was president in the 80s. So it looks like the 70s or even the 50s at points with the coloration, but we get to see the same neighborhood. Frank is leaving that exact house that the movie's been taking place in so far. But the neighborhood
camera work of this is just following him down the walkway, following him, and handed inside the back of the car, and then it's person behind. It's like Grand Theft Auto view practically, and just following him down the store. Also, Frank played by Richard Brake, by the way. Yeah. Fantastic.
So
extremely unsettling.
So we see that the neighborhood at one point was really beautiful. All the houses are brightly colored. The grass is perfectly trimmed. It's really nice looking. He then drives off, goes to a grocery store, and asks somebody about, I'll just call it a makeshift birthing kit. He gets formula,
diapers,
a tarp, because you need a tarp, for a home birth that he's going to be doing himself.
Yeah.
He then leaves the store, pulls his car out, and stares out the window. He then now proceeds to stalk a woman. She gets into a car. He follows her. He parks away from her house and then puts on a uniform for DWP, which I'm assuming is Detroit Water and Power, and knocks on her door and tells her something about there's outages and he just wants to check something. She lets him in. He goes into the bathroom, unlocks the bathroom window, and then leaves.
Yep.
Which is foreshadowing. He then proceeds to go back to his house where he meets his neighbor, Doug. I don't know why I remember Doug, but I forgot Frank's name. But remember his neighbor's name was Doug. Doug tells him that he's moving out. The neighborhood is going downhill. which is in the 80s in Detroit. We know what that means. It's racial, and it was kind of messed up, but it's part of history. So Frank walks into his house with his bags, and the house is kind of in disarray. Goes to the basement door, opens the door, and we hear a woman screaming. And then the basement door shuts, and we get our hard cut back into the pit with Tess and AJ. Tess now telling AJ, just do what she says. Don't scream. Don't freak out. Don't just do what she says. And we see this giant hand and giant arm come down from the top of the pit with this ungodly large bottle. It's a bottle you use to feed like calves or something like that. So
he just drink the goddamn milk.
Yeah, he refuses. She says, just drink the goddamn milk. Then she does. Tess drinks the milk, and he refuses to. So Mother drops down in the pit.
That's one of the scenes that gives a true weight to how large Mother is and just how powerful she could possibly be. Because she drops down quick and with a loud thud. And it's like, oh, yeah. So she drags AJ out and proceeds to leave the pit open. We see from this point on, the movie is pretty cool because we get this continuous cut back and forth. So we'll get like a few steps into what's happening to AJ, a few steps into what Tess is doing, and it just keeps cutting back and forth. So we get to see there's never a moment where we're like, what's happening? Because we get that answer immediately, which kudos to the director and the editing staff for doing that, because that's like the coolest thing to do. Yeah.
So Mother drags AJ into the nursing room. That's what I'm going to call it. It's the fucking nursing room. And we get this uncomfortably long shot of her just trying to breastfeed AJ.
Which, I mean, if you want to look at it like this, it's kind of him getting his comeuppance. It's karma, because he forced himself 100%. On, what was her name? I think Megan, maybe?
Megan, yeah.
Him forcing himself onto her and her not wanting it, obviously, and the Mother's like, oh, you creep, you. So it was nice to be like, okay, good. There is some form of retribution in a way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's such a fucked up way too. I mean, rape in general is just horrible, but see this happening, it's oh my gosh. So Tess gets out of the pit, proceeds to leave. She sees him in the feeding room and goes to leave him, and then steps on the tape measure.
Goddamn tape measure.
Alerts Mother. Tess goes running. Mother follows. AJ gets up and then goes the other direction back into the mines. Tess is not having it this time. She smashes the basement window and crawls out.
It was one of the things in the movie where I'm sitting there going, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
Where she smashes the mirror or smashes the window, starts crawling out, and is about to get grabbed, except for our wonderful friend who came up running, screaming, nope, get out of that house. Pulls her away just in time as Mother goes, bleh. And you get a sweet panning shot like backwards as she kind of retreats back into the house.
Yeah. So
I cannot speak enough justice to the filmography or the videography, whatever you want to call it, of this movie.
Yeah.
It's shot wonderfully across the board.
I mean, they really, I think a lot of those angles, especially that one where you see Mother just in the window there. I mean, she's even hunched over. I mean, it builds doom. It like gives you that feeling of like, even though I'm out, I'm not out. Like there's no way. Like that's a small window, but we're still not clear.
Yeah.
So we're officially introduced to Andre, who's the homeless guy. We end up finding out lives in the neighborhood.
He's
in one of the houses.
Go to the water tower or something.
Yeah, he lives by the water tower.
Yeah.
So then we get a cut back to AJ, going down the hallway, he shines his flashlight on a bell that is hanging on the wall and follows the rope that's attached to it to yet another door. Then we see Mother approach very slowly and cautiously and then turns around and walks away, which is immediately like, you thought Mother was the bad guy?
Wrong.
No.
There's practically a pawn in this situation.
Yeah. So AJ opens the door into a room that's got TVs and stuff in it, and the TV's on. He turns around to then find Frank, old and basically he can't talk or anything, just in a bed there. AJ gives him water because he reaches for water. He gives him a bottle of water or vodka. I don't know. It was a bottle.
Yeah. An old dirty bottle of something.
Yeah.
Clear liquid.
Then we cut back to Tess, who's at a gas station now, asking if they have a phone. And then we now cut back to AJ, who is Frank is reaching and pointing at something else, and he doesn't know what to do, so AJ grabs an entire side table and just brings it over to him. He's like, I don't know what you want, man. And then we cut back to Tess, who's now asking two cops in a car for help, and they are not having it.
They is there something else with this neighborhood, or is it's just so broken down where they're like, it's not worth our time?
It's
and
Detroit
she's coming up. Yeah, no ID, completely dirty and ratty. And she's like, I'm not a crackhead, dude. I swear to God, someone is being held captive in this house. And
she literally has to say she's not a crackhead. She looks like one, but she's been being held captive. So then we cut back to AJ, and we start to see all these VHSs that are labeled with women's names and descriptions and stuff like that.
Red.
And there's one
woman stop crying. It's all unsettling to read.
So there's one VHS in a VCR that says gas station redhead.
Yep.
And he pushes it in. We cut back to Tess, who is now outside the house with the cops. Like, I broke out of this window. There's someone being held captive. She's already killed one person. She's going to kill again. You got to let me in. The cops are not having it. The cops get a call for shots fired, and they leave her back at the house. So we cut back to AJ. All we hear is sound. We never see whatever he's watching, but it's horrendous. It's a woman screaming. And she's being like, you hear slap noises and stuff. So he turns around and asks Frank what the fuck's wrong with him. Yeah. Frank has a gun.
Yep.
And he's pointing it at him, and he's like, no. And then Frank just immediately turns the gun on himself. And AJ's like, no. And he shoots himself in the head, which we also don't see. That's something I will give this movie to, is like the most horrifically violent sequence is at the beginning of the movie when Keith gets his head smashed in. After that, everything's implied. It's got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing about it, where it's like horrific things are happening, but you don't see any of it. It's all just sound and like the idea. You know what's going on.
It lets your imagination do the hard and dirty work for you. Like,
exactly.
You have to imagine this. It's forcing you to imagine it, and it's horrific.
So then we cut back to a really cool shot inside the house, and it's just silent, and we're waiting, and Tess throws a brick through the window, and comes in through the window because she's got to get in to get AJ. She runs back down to the basement, and as she's walking into the tunnel, you hear the gunfire. AJ shot Tess in the side. He then apologizes and picks her up to get her out of there. Oh, snap. I completely jumped over something. So before that, she smashes the window, crawls in, and then goes to go down, and she smashes the window, and then Mother busts through the door. She starts her car. She grabs her keys first. She doesn't even go downstairs. Right. She busts out the window. She goes and grabs her car keys and fucking leaves. She starts her car and pulls it out, and mother busts down the front door.
You said his name was Andre, right?
Andre, the homeless guy. Yeah.
Yeah. When he pulled her out, he's basically like, you need to leave, because she comes out at night and she goes hunting at night. You think you're safe now? She will come out of the house and try and find you. And lo and behold,
she busts out the door, and then Tess hits her with the car, pins her between the house and her car. We then see mother like kind of slump over, takes a like huge, exhale of breath. So Tess believes that she's safe, goes down, gets shot, comes back up with AJ.
For a second, when she's like lying on the ground, she's got like a mark on her head. I was like, oh my God, I thought she survived this. It looked like she has a bullet in the head, which she blinked and moved. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, he like shook her and apologized when she came to. And they leave the house, and mother's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Tess goes, I know where we can go. And so they go and find Andre. Andre's at a fence, and he opens up this thing in the fence, and he's like, come here, come here, come here, come here. To the most like stressful moment in the entire movie for me too. They're sitting there, and he's like, no, you'll be safe here. Everything's fine. I've been here for 15 years, and she ain't never came for me. She Kool-Aid man's through the wall.
She's waiting. She's like, all right, he's going to say something. Come on.
Yeah. And then grabs him and proceeds to rip off his arm and beat him. Just like,
it's like a Mortal Kombat fatality, dude. She goes ham on Andre's head.
Just beats him with his own arm. So Tess and AJ run out, go to the water tower, or going up the water tower, and AJ does the most AJ thing possible and betrays all of our trust again. And
I can make it out of here. You, on the other hand.
Yeah. So he waits till mother's at the top of the stairs, grabs Tess by the hair, and just says, you want your baby? Go get her, and throws Tess off of the water tower. Two really cool slow motion shots. We get one with the camera going down, following Tess, looking up, to then the next shot where the camera's facing up the water tower, where mother dives off facing the camera. It's like such a cool shot. I was like, what the hell? Oh man.
And it makes you hate Justin Long just a lot of it more.
Yeah, it's that moment too where it's like mother is terrifying in every way, shape, or form. Everything she's been doing is horrific.
Yeah.
But you know what? She's diving after Tess because she wants to save Tess. But it's still, you're being chased, and there's no getting away from that chase because you're plummeting. Like you're just falling.
I don't know how I would feel. Like already I'm falling, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm about to die. But then all of a sudden this monster just goes. Like, let me hit the ground first. Hang on.
So then Justin turns around and looks down, and that's when we then see that mother did get to Tess mid-fall and broke Tess's fall with her own body. So Justin goes down, grabs the gun that he dropped, which I forgot to mention as they were going. They got up to the top. She said, your gun. And he fumbles with it and drops the gun. So he gets down there, finds out that Tess is still alive, and then apologizes. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
To the extreme. You know I had to do it, right? It was I'm so sorry, but I had to do it. You understand that, right? Of course you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barely conscious again to the world after falling off a water tower. And he's like, yeah, it's okay, don't worry about it. Picks her up.
Then
it's so good.
Mother sits up like freaking Michael Myers or some shit. It's the best moment. And then just grabs AJ, grabs him and thumbs his eyes out. And we see that. That's one of the gore we get to see. And then this amazing cut to behind him where you see the freaking rage in Mother's face, and she just splits his head open like an egg.
Can we talk about this kill for a second? Like, usually when you see thumbs and eyes, it's usually just like blood, 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 blood. this was like pus and green.
Yeah.
Like the eyes were basically just.
Yeah.
It's not just blood. It's not just that. It's the jelly, if you will. It's
pretty close to what I would imagine would be in there. I mean, also, like, I have big hands. There's no way Mother's hands aren't bigger than mine. Like, her hands have to be, like, twice my length.
But also, her nails, dude.
Yeah.
Like, when she reaches down with the bottle, and it's just like Freddy Krueger's just like, hey, I got your milk. It's like, blah.
So, I mean, like, just imagine, like, the length of my hand as a thumb. I mean, some of that had to have been brain oozing out from his eye sockets.
Yeah.
Like, just pushing all the way in. Oh, man. Scraping the back of his skull. So she does that, and Tess is still laying on the ground because the poor woman's been shot. She's fallen from a water tower now. She's been being tortured for weeks on end. Yeah. So Mother walks over to her to one of my favorite noises I've ever heard in a horror movie with a creature, and I still do it to this day, especially to people who have seen the movie and the movie makes them uncomfortable. Mother walks over and starts trying to, like, point her, like, let's go back to the house. And she's like, I can't go back to the house. Whoa. And then, mama, mama, mama. Yep. It's so uncomfortable, but it's so amazing, too, because, like, oh, man. So
meanwhile, Tess grabs the gun
and puts it to Mother's face. And it's a sad moment. Like, I'll be real. It's sad. Mother puts her thumb on Tess's forehead and just says, bye-bye. And Tess pulls the trigger. We don't see her, like, we don't see the shot happen. We hear it. And then it's Tess walking away.
Yeah, it does a cool, like, hard cuts again where it's like, I'm pretty sure it says Barbarian again. Yeah. And then it just goes, written by, directed by, and it's all cut with her just getting up, walking away.
Yep. And the movie ends.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie.
We forgot to mention when they're having the conversation with Andre, he's explaining, he's like, yeah, all this stuff went down with Frank, and it's like, he had his way, they made babies, they had ways with babies, and this is what happens. And it's just it takes this whole already unsettling imagined, like, this is what has been happening, and kind of puts more concrete to it.
Yeah.
And it gets even worse.
So I've said, go watch this movie. You'll like this movie, or this movie's messed up, you should see it. I always tell them two things. Don't watch any trailers. Don't even watch a teaser.
Yep.
Just go in blind. Second thing I say is, this movie has been done before, but not in this setting.
What movie was it before?
The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh.
So this is just, it's inbreeding. It's these inbred creature monster. Like, This is one monster, but it's done in a city.
Yeah.
Like, The Hills Have Eyes. This has been done before. It just hasn't been done in this environment. And that was
with a bigger budget too.
Oh yeah. I mean, bigger budget doesn't always mean good. But This time, I mean, they really didn't even have a big budget. This was technically a semi-indie film. But man, did they do a good job with this. I love this movie, like, through and through. This is why I stand by. The lighting, the sound, like, there's music notes for each character. Each character has their own sound. Go rewatch it. You'll hear it. It's amazing. The
filming,
sound, everything. There isn't a bad thing about the movie, in my opinion.
Except for that tape measure, swear to God.
And that's
took me out of it. It's no longer real.
All right. So I'll make sure that next time I pick a movie, there can't be tape measures in it at all. Even in the background.
If there's a tape measure, I'm out. I don't want it.
Don't want to trigger you.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I mean, most people complain, and their complaints are stupid. Like, I'll be honest, like anyone who says they don't like this movie, you're wrong. Like, plain and simple, you're wrong.
When we were episode planning, like when it was like we should do a movie where it's like you love it, I have a differing view. I love it, you have a differing view, and this is the one I thought was going to be you versus me. When I rewatched it, and I was like, this is a fantastic movie. This movie's great. Like, we're going to have to do more research and find which one it's going to be, because this was not it. This was yet another shared like experience and opinion on the movie.
Yeah. I definitely have a few up my sleeve that I know for a fact. You're going to watch it and be like, why'd you do this to me?
It can't be everything from Tubi, Rob. God.
No Tubi. Yeah, I don't know. I have such an issue with it's very rare that I'll stand my ground when it comes down to like how good a movie is, because it is up to interpretation. Like, you make your own judgment. It's your. But if someone doesn't like this movie, they're wrong. Like, plain and simple, they're wrong. You can't say it's because of Justin Long. Justin Long's a terrible bad guy. You hate him. He's doing his job,
making you hate him.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't hate the bad guy and it's like they're really doing some messed up stuff, if you don't hate them, you lost them.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it or where I heard it. I heard it recently too. Somebody had said that if Barbarian was everything the first part of the movie was, if that was the entire movie, they would have liked it better. And I'm like, so you would have liked literally every other horror movie that's ever been made.
Because would have liked knowing what was going to happen from the get-go.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, Bill Skarsgård, he's the bad guy. Movie.
Right. And we get, there are three different stories. That's the thing that I love about this. Well, technically, there are four. If we want to consider Tess and Keith their own paths. But, I mean, we'll consider their portion one story. We have their story. We have AJ's story, and then we have Frank's story.
This was 2022, right?
Last year, yeah.
Okay, so do you know when it was filmed and when production was happening? Because honestly, it gives me like, this could be a great movie that came out of 2020. Like, if they started filming in that, or like early 2021, because it's, for the most part, it's one person or two people.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's just isolated shots, and it's great.
I don't remember exactly. I know for a fact it was written right during like the start of COVID. It was like one of those, like, I'm writing this right now because maybe I can shoot it right now.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they shot it quickly. I'm pretty sure it was shot in 2021 and was released the next year. Because I remember hearing about it and then it was out. And it was like quick. It wasn't one of those like
still a little bit on it.
Yeah.
I feel like things lightened up at that point, but okay, all right. Either way, it would make.
And I like that we were given a real bad situation, like the COVID and everything. That situation was terrible for our entire country, for the entire world.
Yeah. But
we were given really rare opportunity. Filmmakers were given rare opportunity to make personal projects. You ended up seeing a lot more movies with 1, 2, or 3 people on screen together in one spot, and the stories are so much more like visceral that way, especially horror films. There were a few like found footage horror films that were done during lockdown that were really good.
Yeah.
I think lockdown had its benefit for all of us as viewers, because the creatives weren't being pulled 1,000 different directions. They only had themselves and a computer or whatever they were using to write, and their own imagination to take control.
They finally had time to do some of the stuff that they couldn't normally do.
Right.
And like some albums were churned out in great time. during that as well, like Lamb of God, Trivium. I know you don't like Ghost. The new Avenged Sevenfold album was mostly done like 2019 throughout the pandemic still. Like it gave creativity an actual time to do something.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler, the creator, he wrote all of his second to last album during lockdown and didn't release it until like 2 years ago or a year ago or something like that. But was it Call Me If You're Lost?
Okay.
Album is fantastic. I mean, there were some bad albums that came out too. Like Childish Gambino dropped an album that he should never have released or recorded. Like that was terrible. But
I liked a few songs on it. There was a few songs that were great, and then there was one with like 21 Savage where it was like, oh no, just put that back. It's okay, don't worry about that.
Maybe
Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian. I was just saying maybe we should do like a COVID double week. Like just each of us pick a movie that was like shot during lockdown, because I already know one I would do. So
okay.
But yeah, Barbarian. I stand by it, and I will always stand by it. It is the best horror film that was released in 2022, and that's standing up against like X, Pearl, Terrifier 2, Halloween Ends. What else? There was so much that dropped last year. I saw so many movies, but
was Scream 5? Was Scream 5 21 or 22?
That is a good question. So
how many giant calf-sized milk jugs would you give this out of 10?
12. It was fantastic. Yeah, I absolutely adore this film, like through and through. And even doing this where it was like, I'm doing a little bit of research for an episode, I was so just into it. Like
during the movie,
there isn't much to complain about. Like anytime I hit play to watch this movie, I just smile because I'm like, yay. It's a fun ride.
Yeah.
What about you?
Sticking to the structure of out of 10, Rob, I would give it 9.5 because of that tape measure.
All right.
Yeah. It is a fantastic movie. All jokes aside, it is a fantastic movie. I'm glad we decided to do this so I could rewatch it again, because honestly, after the first watch and like falling asleep during it, my brain wasn't like, maybe I should give it a second chance. It was just like, okay. I'm so glad we did this so I could rewatch it and fully appreciate the movie for what it was. Now I'm going to have to watch it a third time to hear those little music cues you're talking about.
Dude, I'm telling you, you're going to notice something different and new every single time you watch. Like, there are certain things that happen. There are little moments where you're like, oh shit. Like, it's so good. I rarely get this excited about movies. Like, I get excited, but like a year later, just like love. The only other movie that gets me this giddy is John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, that is comfort food.
I mean, we've got a bunch of ideas for films to watch and then to spoil, and like the ones we've done as of right now are either 23 or 22. So I think our plan for next week is actually to do an 80s movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if any of you watching, if you haven't figured it out yet, Barbarian was one of my 2 picks for Mother's Day. So we decided to each do a pick from our Mother's Day choices. So Jason,
you had Hereditary and Barbarian, and we went with Barbarian. And for next week, I chose either Aliens or the one we're going to do, Friday the 13th, Part 1. So for those of you that also don't know, my namesake being Jason Michael is after Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers. So it's kind of the dawn of this little lad right here.
Yeah.
Which is even funnier because it's not really anything to do with Jason.
No, not at all. I mean, well, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. like we're getting ahead to next week's episode. We'll talk about that in next week's episode.
Yeah. So yeah, let's wrap this up. And do you have anyone you want to thank this week?
Yeah. Well, first, like as you said at the top of the show, like thank you, JB and Jordan. We are officially part of the Nerd Camp Network again, with the main reason or the only reason that we met through Camp Nightmare. Yeah. Getting to know them. Rob, you've met them. One day I will meet them, but it's like, thank you, Jordan and JB. We're finally part of a grand, like, umbrella of podcasts. Yeah. This whole network of the Nerd Camp Network, and it's fantastic. Thanks. Thanks to you, especially for like still doing all this fun stuff and getting ready for it, and knowing more about Barbarian than I did. It's fantastic. Like pushing me to actually watch the movie again, because I watched it because of your suggestion in the first place, and I was like, okay. But it's even better now.
I'm so glad you liked it. The few people that I have gotten to watch it off of my suggestion, only one of them was like, not for me, and I'm like, all right, I tried.
You're wrong.
They can't all be winning. Yeah. But yeah, I want to thank, well, obviously you. It's just tonight, with Instagram being the way it was today, I'd thrown in the towel, and you were like, no, let's give it one more go. So and I'm really glad you did, because I'm glad we were able to do this. I missed doing it last week. It's like something was missing, and it was this. So I also want to thank somebody kind of random, but I want to thank Ben Haney. He was actually the third person to follow us on here. He's one of my dad's employees.
Nice.
But he was really excited. He knows about something that I've got in the works right now. He's seen some of it, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. He gave me a few ideas also that you and I need to talk about. But yeah, I wanted to thank Ben. Dude, thank you so much. He's also a listener now of Camp Nightmare because of me. And I want to just, I thank you, JB Jordan. We're going to thank you every single time. Thank you. Also, Bree. Bree helped me out with some information this week that I don't think I would have gotten to alone.
Quick little plugs. Go follow the Spoiler Sleepover, as well as go follow Feisty Cheese, which is me. Yeah, I think that's what we got. So,
all right.
I've been Jason Michael,
and I've been Rob. Sleep tight, suckers.